Jack Miller stood in front of the massive rocket, his heart racing with excitement. The moon glowed in the night sky, seeming to call up to him. At 35, Jack was one of NASA's best astronauts. This mission was supposed to be routine, a quick trip to the moon to check on some equipment. But Jack felt something different about this one. As he climbed into the spacecraft, his team gave him thumbs up. "You've got this, Jack," they shouted. Jack smiled and waved back. The countdown began, and soon the engines roared to life. The ground shook as the rocket lifted off, pushing Jack back into his seat. Everything went smoothly at first. Jack watched Earth grow smaller as he zoomed towards the moon. He had done this trip before, but it always amazed him. After a while, he settled in for the long journey, checking his instruments and sending reports back to mission control. Halfway to the moon, Jack noticed something odd. A small red light was blinking on his control panel. He frowned, tapping the screen. It wasn't supposed to do that. He radioed Earth. "Houston, I'm seeing a warning light here. Can you check it out?" There was a pause, then a crackly voice replied, "We see it too, Jack. Running diagnostics now." Jack waited, trying to stay calm. But then more lights started flashing. Suddenly, the spacecraft jerked to the side. Jack grabbed the controls, his training kicking in. "Houston, I've lost stabilization," he shouted. Alarms blared as the ship started to spin. Jack fought with the controls, but nothing worked. The moon loomed larger in his window, spinning wildly. He could hear the panic in the voices from Earth, but their words became jumbled as the radio cut in and out. "Mayday! Mayday!" Jack yelled, even though he knew it was useless. The spacecraft was completely out of control now, hurtling towards the moon's surface. Jack's stomach lurched as he felt the pull of the moon's gravity. In his mind, Jack saw flashes of his life. His parents, his little sister, his dog buddy. He thought of all the things he still wanted to do. "Not like this," he muttered, still fighting with the controls. The moon's craters grew larger in his view. Jack knew he had only seconds left. He closed his eyes, bracing for impact. The last thing he heard was the screeching of metal as the ship hit the lunar surface. Then silence. Jack didn't know how long he was out. When he opened his eyes, everything was blurry. His head throbbed, and he tasted blood in his mouth. Slowly, the inside of the crashed ship came into focus. Sparks flew from broken panels, and a thin mist filled the air, probably from a leaking oxygen tank. He tried to move but cried out in pain. His leg was pinned under a collapsed section of the ship. The realization hit him hard. He was trapped, alone, on the surface of the moon. Even if Houston knew he was alive, a rescue mission would take days to reach him. Days he didn't have. Jack's breathing quickened as panic set in. He was going to die here, millions of miles from home. He thought of his family watching the news, learning that he had crashed. The idea of them suffering broke his heart. As his vision started to fade again, Jack saw something strange. A shimmer in the air, like a heat wave. But that was impossible. There was no heat on the moon's surface. The shimmer grew stronger, taking on a vague shape. Jack blinked hard, thinking he must be hallucinating from lack of oxygen. But the shape became clearer. It wasn't human, not even close. It had a tall, slender body that seemed to glow from within. Multiple limbs moved with fluid grace, and where a face should be, there were only swirling patterns of light. The being, because Jack was sure now that it was alive, reached out towards him. Jack wanted to scream, to move away, but he was frozen in shock and fear. As the creature's limb touched his chest, Jack felt a warmth spread through his body. The pain in his head faded. He felt the pressure lift from his leg. Somehow, the alien, because what else could it be, was healing him. Just before he passed out again, Jack had one clear thought. This was definitely not going to be a routine mission after all. Jack's eyes fluttered open. For a moment, he thought he was back on Earth, waking up in his own bed. But as his vision cleared, he realized he was in a strange place. The room around him shimmered with a soft, bluish light. It wasn't the inside of his crashed spacecraft, nor any place he recognized. He sat up slowly, expecting pain, but felt none. Looking down at his body, Jack was shocked to see that his spacesuit was gone. Instead, he wore a silvery, form-fitting outfit that seemed to glow faintly. His skin, where visible, showed no signs of the injuries he remembered from the crash. "What the—" Jack muttered, his voice echoing slightly in the odd room. He swung his legs off the surface he'd been lying on, some kind of floating platform with no visible supports. As his feet touched the floor, it rippled like water but felt solid. Suddenly, Jack remembered the alien figure he'd seen just before passing out. His heart raced. Had that been real? Where was he now? As if in answer to his thoughts, a section of the wall began to shimmer more intensely. Jack watched, mouth agape, as a tall, slender figure stepped through what he now realized was some kind of energy field doorway. The beam before him was unlike anything Jack had ever seen or imagined. Its body seemed to be made of swirling light and mist, constantly shifting in form, but maintaining a vaguely humanoid shape. Where a face should be, there were patterns of pulsing light that somehow gave the impression of eyes and a mouth. Jack stumbled backward, his astronaut training momentarily forgotten in the face of this impossible creature. "Who? What are you?" he managed to stammer. The alien made no sound, but Jack felt a gentle pressure in his mind. Suddenly, words formed in his thoughts, as clear as if they'd been spoken aloud. "Be calm, Jack Miller of Earth. You are safe here." Jack blinked in surprise. "You know my name. How? Where am I? What happened to me?" The alien's form shimmered, and Jack got the distinct impression it was amused. So many questions, the voice in his head said. "It is understandable. I am Zor-El. You are in our healing chamber, deep beneath the surface of what you call the moon." Jack's jaw dropped. "Beneath the— You mean you live here, on the moon?" Zor-El's body pulsed with light. "We have lived here for millennia, long before your kind first looked up at the night sky with wonder." As Jack tried to process this information, Zor-El moved closer. Jack tensed, but found he wasn't afraid. There was a calming presence about the alien. "Your vessel crashed," Zor-El continued. "I sensed your life force fading and intervened. It is not our way to interfere with your kind, but I could not stand by and watch you perish." Jack looked down at his healed body, then back at Zor-El. "You saved me," he said softly. "Thank you." Zor-El's form shimmered again. "You are welcome, Jack Miller, but now we face a dilemma. Your presence here is unprecedented." Before Jack could ask what that meant, the energy field doorway shimmered again. Two more aliens entered, their forms similar to Zor-El's, but with different light patterns. They communicated in rapid pulses of light and color. Jack couldn't understand them, but he could sense tension in the air. One of the new aliens gestured at him, its form turning a dark, stormy color. Zor-El turned back to Jack. "I apologize. Not all of my kind are pleased with my decision to save you. Your presence here risks exposing our existence to your world." Jack's mind reeled. A hidden alien civilization on the moon. It was almost too much to believe. Yet here he was, standing in their secret base, alive because of their advanced technology. "What happens now?" Jack asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Zor-El's form seemed to sigh. "Now, Jack Miller, we must decide the fate of two worlds." Jack stood nervously as the three aliens communicated in their strange, silent language of light and color. He wished he could understand what they were saying. His fate, and maybe the fate of Earth, seemed to hang in the balance. Finally, Zor-El turned back to Jack. "We have reached a decision." The alien's voice echoed in Jack's mind. "You will be allowed to stay and recover fully. During this time, we will teach you about our civilization." Jack let out a breath, he didn't realize he'd been holding. "Thank you," he said. "But why? Why show me all this?" The other two aliens shimmered and left the room. Zor-El's form pulsed softly. "Walk with me, Jack Miller. There is much to explain." As they moved through the doorway, Jack gasped. They were in a vast cavern, filled with structures that seemed to be made of light and crystal. Alien beings floated and walked about, their bodies shimmering in various colors. "This is our city," Zor-El explained, "one of many beneath the moon's surface. We have lived here in secret for thousands of years." Jack's head spun as he tried to take it all in. But why? Why hide? Zor-El led Jack to a platform that began to float, carrying them through the city. "Long ago, we came to this solar system as explorers. We found your world, Earth, teeming with life, but not yet ready for contact. We decided to wait and watch from your moon." As they passed by other aliens, Jack noticed many of them staring at him with what seemed like curiosity or concern. Some even seemed excited. Zor-El continued, "Over time, we saw your civilization grow. We watched your wars, your discoveries, your triumphs and failures. Some of us wanted to reveal ourselves, to help guide your species. Others feared what contact might bring." The platform stopped at a large structure. Inside, Jack saw what looked like a massive library, but instead of books, there were swirling orbs of light. "This is our Hall of Knowledge," Zor-El said. "Here, we have recorded all we know about the universe, including the complete history of your world." Jack reached out to touch one of the orbs but stopped himself. "This is incredible," he whispered. "But I still don't understand. Why show me all this now?" Zor-El's form seemed to grow more serious. "Because, Jack Miller, the time of hiding may be coming to an end. Your people are advancing quickly. Soon, you will have the technology to detect us, to come here in great numbers. We must decide how to handle this." Jack frowned. "You're afraid of us, aren't you?" "Some of us are," Zor-El admitted. "We have seen the violence your kind is capable of. But others, like myself, believe that your species has great potential. We have been debating for decades about whether to make contact." Suddenly, Jack understood. "And now that I'm here, you have to decide." Zor-El nodded, or at least Jack thought it was a nod. "Yes, your accident has forced our hand. We must now choose. Reveal ourselves to your world or—" Jack felt a chill. "Or what?" Zor-El's form darkened slightly. "Or ensure that you can never reveal our existence." Jack took a step back. "You mean, keep me here forever? Or—" "Those are possibilities some have suggested," Zor-El said softly. "But I believe there is another way, one that could benefit both our peoples." Before Jack could ask what that meant, another alien approached rapidly, its form flashing with urgent patterns. Zor-El turned to Jack, its voice in his mind now tinged with worry. "It seems the decision may be out of our hands. Your people have noticed your disappearance. They are sending a rescue mission." Jack's eyes widened. "But they'll find this place. They'll discover you." Zor-El's form pulsed rapidly. "Yes, which means we must act quickly. Jack Miller, are you ready to become the bridge between our worlds?" Jack looked around at the alien city, then back at Zor-El. He took a deep breath and nodded. "I'm ready. Tell me what to do." Jack followed Zor-El through the shimmering corridors of the alien city. His mind raced with the enormity of what was happening. He was about to become the first human to officially make contact with an alien civilization. The weight of this responsibility pressed down on him. They entered a large, circular room. In the center stood a device that looked like a mix between a control panel and a glowing sculpture. Other aliens were gathered around it, their forms pulsing with what Jack guessed was anxiety. "This is our council chamber," Zor-El explained. "Here, we will decide how to proceed." One of the aliens, its form a deep purple, approached them. Its thoughts entered Jack's mind, feeling older and more formal than Zor-El's. I am Elcor, leader of our council. Zor-El has taken a great risk in saving you and showing you our home. Jack Miller. Jack straightened up, trying to look as dignified as possible in his shimmering bodysuit. I understand, sir. Elcor. I'm grateful for what you've done for me. I want to help make this first contact go smoothly. Elcor's form rippled. Noble words, but can we trust you to represent our interests to your people? How do we know you won't betray our location, our weaknesses? Jack felt a flash of anger, but he kept his voice calm. With all due respect, if you didn't trust me at all, I wouldn't be standing here. You'd have left me in that crashed ship. Zor-El's form brightened, and Jack got the impression it was pleased with his response. Elcor seemed to consider this for a moment. You speak truth. Elcor admitted. Very well. We shall proceed with Zor-El's plan. But be warned, if you betray us, the consequences will be severe. Jack nodded solemnly. I understand. So what's the plan? Zor-El guided Jack to the central device. We will send you back to the crash site, healed but with your suit showing signs of damage. You will claim that you managed to repair your life support systems and waited for rescue. But what about explaining how I survived the crash? Jack asked. We have technology that can create false memories. Elcor interjected. Your mind will contain plausible explanations for your survival. Jack felt uneasy at the idea of his mind being altered, but he nodded. And then what? Zor-El continued. Once you are safely back on Earth, you will gradually introduce the idea that there might be intelligent life on the moon. Use your influence as a respected astronaut. Prepare your people for the truth. We will be watching, Elcor added. If we feel your world is ready, we will reveal ourselves. If not, the alien's form darkened ominously. Jack took a deep breath. I'll do my best. But what if my people don't believe me? What if they think I'm crazy? Zor-El placed what felt like a hand on Jack's shoulder. We will provide you with small pieces of our technology. Nothing too advanced, but enough to prove that something unusual happened to you on the moon. Suddenly, alarms began to sound throughout the chamber. Another alien rushed in, its form flashing urgently. The Earth rescue mission, it communicated. They're approaching faster than we anticipated. They'll be at the crash site in less than an hour. The room erupted in a flurry of flashing lights as the aliens communicated rapidly. Jack felt panic rising in his chest. What do we do? He asked. Elcor's form stabilized, radiating authority. We must act now. Jack Miller, are you prepared to carry this burden? To be the bridge between our worlds? Jack looked around the room at the alien faces, then back at Zor-El, who had saved his life. He thought of Earth, of the incredible impact this could have on humanity. Finally, he nodded firmly. I'm ready, he said, his voice stronger than he felt. Zor-El's form brightened. Then let us begin. May your journey change the destiny of both our peoples, Jack Miller. As the aliens gathered around him, their forms glowing with power, Jack closed his eyes. Whatever happened next, he knew his life, and the history of Earth, would never be the same. Jack blinked, finding himself back in his damaged spacecraft. The transition had been so smooth, he almost believed he'd never left. But the weight of the small alien device in his pocket told him otherwise. He looked around, trying to orient himself. The ship's interior was a mess, but not as bad as it should have been after such a crash. Jack realized the aliens must have partially repaired it to match his official story. He checked his suit, torn in places, but functional, perfect for his tale of survival. Suddenly, his radio crackled to life. Lunar Lander 1, this is Houston Rescue. Do you copy? Jack, are you there? Jack's heart raced. This was it, the moment that would change everything. He took a deep breath and pressed the comm button. Houston Rescue, this is Jack Miller. I'm alive. Barely, but I'm here. The radio exploded with cheers and exclamations. Jack could almost picture the celebration in Mission Control. As he answered their questions, explaining his miraculous survival with the false memories the aliens had given him, he felt a twinge of guilt. He was lying to his friends, his colleagues, but he knew it was necessary. Hours later, Jack sat in the rescue ship heading back to Earth. His fellow astronauts kept checking on him, amazed at his condition after such a crash. Jack stuck to his story, describing how he managed to patch up the life support systems and ration his supplies. As Earth grew larger in the viewport, Jack's mind raced. How would he begin to prepare humanity for the truth? The alien device in his pocket felt heavy with responsibility. Days passed in a whirlwind of debriefings, medical checks, and press conferences. Jack repeated his story countless times, each retelling reinforcing the false memories. But at night, alone in his quarters, he would take out the alien device and remember his true mission. It was during one of these moments that Jack had a visitor. Dr. Sarah Chen, the head of xenobiology at NASA, knocked on his door. "Jack, can we talk?" Jack quickly hid the device. "Sure, come in." Sarah sat down, her face serious. "Jack, I've been over your test results, the ship's data, everything. And, well, something doesn't add up." Jack's heart pounded. Had they discovered the truth already? "What do you mean?" he asked, trying to keep his voice steady. Sarah leaned in. "The radiation levels in your body, the way your injuries healed. It's not natural, Jack. Did something happen up there that you're not telling us?" For a moment, Jack considered telling her everything. But Zor-El's warning echoed in his mind. It wasn't time yet. "Sarah," he said carefully, "a lot happened up there that I'm still trying to process. I'm not sure I understand it all myself." Sarah studied him for a long moment. "Jack, you know you can trust me, right? If there's something extraordinary that happened, I want to help." Jack saw the earnestness in her eyes. Maybe, he thought, he didn't have to do this alone. "Sarah," he said slowly, "what would you say if I told you we might not be alone in the universe? That there might be others, closer than we think?" Sarah's eyes widened. "Jack, are you saying?" Before she could finish, alarms blared throughout the base. The intercom crackled to life. "All personnel to emergency stations. Unidentified object approaching Earth at high speed." Jack and Sarah rushed to the nearest window. In the night sky, a bright light was growing larger by the second. Jack's breath caught in his throat. He recognized that light. "It's them," he whispered. Sarah turned to him, her face a mix of fear and excitement. "Them? Jack, what's going on?" As the light grew brighter, bathing the Earth in an otherworldly glow, Jack realized the aliens had changed their plans. The slow revelation he had prepared for was no longer an option. "Sarah," he said, his voice trembling slightly, "I think it's time I told you the whole truth about what happened on the moon." The world as they knew it was about to change forever. The world was in chaos. News of the approaching alien ship spread like wildfire. Governments scrambled to respond. Military forces were put on high alert, and people everywhere stared at the sky in a mixture of wonder and fear. In the midst of it all, Jack Miller found himself at the center of a storm. After revealing the truth to Dr. Sarah Chen, events moved quickly. Within hours, he was whisked away to a top-secret facility, surrounded by military personnel and the world's leading scientists. "Tell us everything, Miller," General Harris barked, his face stern under the harsh lights of the interrogation room. "Every detail about these aliens." Jack took a deep breath. "They call themselves the Lunarians. They've been living on the moon for thousands of years, watching us grow as a civilization." The room erupted in murmurs. Sarah, who had insisted on being present, leaned forward. "But why reveal themselves now? Why the sudden change in plans?" Jack shook his head. "I don't know. This isn't what we agreed on. They were supposed to let me prepare humanity gradually." General Harris slammed his fist on the table. "Agreed on? You made a deal with them?" "That's treason, Miller." Before Jack could respond, a young soldier burst into the room. "Sir, the alien ship has entered Earth's atmosphere. It's hovering over New York City." The room exploded into action. Monitors flicked on, showing live feeds from New York. The alien ship was unlike anything Jack had seen in their underground city. It was massive, shaped like a shimmering disk, pulsing with the same otherworldly light he remembered from Zor-El and the others. "We need to establish communication," Jack said urgently, "before anyone does something stupid." General Harris glared at him, but nodded to a communications officer. "Do it." As they worked to establish contact, Jack felt the alien device in his pocket grow warm. He pulled it out, ignoring the gasps, and raised weapons around him. The device projected a hologram of Zor-El. "Jack Miller." Zor-El's thoughts entered his mind. "The time for secrecy has passed. Our sensors detected a threat to Earth, an asteroid on a collision course, hidden from your instruments. We had to act quickly." Jack relayed this information to the stunned room. Sarah's eyes widened. "An asteroid? Can they stop it?" As if in answer, the monitors showing the alien ship suddenly lit up. A beam of intense light shot from the ship into space. Everyone watched in awe as, moments later, a massive explosion lit up the sky. "The threat has been neutralized," Zor-El communicated. "We wish now to speak with your world leaders, to offer our friendship and knowledge." The next few hours were a blur. Jack found himself on a helicopter to New York, part of a hastily assembled welcoming committee. As they approached the hovering ship, a beam of light shot down, forming a shimmering bridge. Jack turned to Sarah and General Harris, who had insisted on coming. "Ready to make history?" he asked with a nervous smile. They stepped onto the light bridge. Jack marveled at how solid it felt under his feet. As they ascended, he saw the crowds below, millions of faces turned upward in awe. At the top, the ship's hull seemed to melt away, revealing a vast chamber. And there, waiting for them, was Zor-El, flanked by other Lunarians. "Welcome," Zor-El's thought voice echoed in their minds. "We have much to discuss." General Harris stepped forward, his military bearing slightly shaken by the alien surroundings. "On behalf of the people of Earth, we thank you for saving us. And we have many questions." Zor-El's form shimmered in what Jack now recognized as amusement. "Of course. But first, let us show you wonders beyond your imagination. The universe is vast and full of both dangers and marvels. It is time for Earth to join the galactic community." As Jack watched his fellow humans react with a mix of fear and excitement, he realized this was just the beginning. The real challenge, bridging two vastly different civilizations, was only just starting. But as he looked out at the Earth below, beautiful and fragile, he knew it was worth it. A new era for humanity had begun. 5 years had passed since the day the Lunarians revealed themselves to Earth. The world had changed in ways no one could have imagined. Jack Miller stood on the balcony of the new International Space and Alien Cooperation Center, looking out at the bustling city below. Flying vehicles zipped between buildings, their designs a mix of human ingenuity and Lunarian technology. In the distance, he could see the massive form of the first Earth-Moon transport hub, a joint project that would revolutionize space travel. "Quite a view, isn't it?" Sarah Chen said, joining him at the railing. Now the head of Earth-Lunarian relations, she had been instrumental in smoothing the transition. Jack nodded, smiling. "Sometimes I still can't believe it's real." Their conversation was interrupted by a shimmer of light. Zor-El appeared, its form now a familiar sight to many on Earth. "Jack, Sarah, it's time for the conference." They followed Zor-El into a large auditorium filled with humans and Lunarians. The annual Earth-Luna Summit had become the most watched event across both worlds. Jack took his place at the podium, still amazed that he, a simple astronaut, had become the face of this new era. 5 years ago, Jack began, his voice carried to billions across Earth and the Moon. we discovered we were not alone. We faced fear, uncertainty, and incredible challenges, but we also found friendship, knowledge, and a new purpose. He went on to list the achievements of the past year: advancements in medicine that had eradicated several diseases, clean energy solutions that were reversing climate change, and the first joint human-Lunarian mission to Mars. But it hadn't all been smooth sailing. Jack acknowledged the cultural clashes, the religious upheavals, and the political tensions that still simmered. Some humans feared the rapid changes, while others embraced them wholeheartedly. "We still have much to learn from each other," Jack continued. "The Lunarians have shared their technology and wisdom, but they've also learned from us. Our art, our music, our resilience in the face of adversity. These are the gifts we've given in return." As he spoke, Jack remembered the early days of the integration. The panic and riots that had broken out in some cities, the accusations of alien mind control, the conspiracy theories. It had taken time and patience on both sides to build trust. He glanced at General Harris, now the head of the Global Defense Initiative. The general had been one of the biggest skeptics, but now he worked closely with the Lunarians to protect Earth from cosmic threats. "Today," Jack announced, "I'm proud to reveal our next great project. In cooperation with the Lunarian High Council, we will be establishing the first human colony on Mars. This colony will serve as a stepping stone for further exploration of our solar system and beyond." The auditorium erupted in cheers and flashing lights as the Lunarians expressed their excitement. Jack felt a swell of pride. This was why he had agreed to be the bridge between their worlds. As the conference wound down, Jack found a quiet moment with Zor-El. "Did you ever imagine it would turn out like this?" he asked the alien who had saved his life and changed the course of human history. Zor-El's form shimmered with what Jack now recognized as deep emotion. "In all our years of watching your world, we hoped for this outcome. But it was your actions, Jack Miller, that made it possible. You showed us the best of humanity." Jack felt humbled by the praise. He looked out at the crowd of humans and Lunarians mingling together, sharing ideas and forming friendships. It wasn't perfect. There were still challenges to overcome, prejudices to dismantle, and new threats to face, but they would face them together. As the Earth rose over the lunar horizon, visible through the center's massive windows, Jack felt a sense of peace. The crash that had nearly killed him had led to this moment. Two civilizations united, looking to the stars not with fear, but with hope and wonder. The future, vast and bright, as the universe itself, awaited them all.